Hola, ¿qué pasa, campeones? My name is Diego, and this is DSpot, where we talk all things Barça. I hope you enjoyed part 1 and are ready for part 2 of my chat with Duncan McMath and Graham Hunter, the two creators of the new Barça documentary, Take the Ball, Pass the Ball. In this bit, we delve deep into what inspired them to make the film, their on and off camera conversations with players, and other fascinating stories behind the making of this epic and unmissable Barça movie. Please enjoy this fun and above all heartfelt conversation with two references of mine in the world of sports journalism. All right, guys, so you touched on it briefly there, but
we massaged it. We didn't just touch on it. We massaged,
caressed it,
stroked it, caressed it.
Tell us a little bit more, Duncan. What inspired you to start this documentary?
Well, the book inspired me to make the documentary, but obviously the football inspired the two of us.
Yeah.
I read the book, Barca, the Making of the Greatest Team in the World, on my honeymoon in Madagascar. Loved it. I read it, I must say, and I've told you this before, but I read it as a bit of an obligation. It was Graham's first book, and we were friends and colleagues, and I felt like
said it before. I never liked it.
Sorry.
Let's not do it again.
But I was about 3 pages in when I thought, wow, this is quite special, because I've worked in Spanish football for a long time, over 10 years, and I was reading anecdotes, stories, things from the dressing room that I absolutely didn't know and hadn't read before, and interviews that Graham had conducted with the players that were, you know, really, really good. And I came back immediately saying this should be a film. We talked about it. You thought I was mad to start with.
What was your reaction then?
I think you know what my reaction was. Just like when the editors came to tell me how to write a book, I was like, nah. You're talking about, everybody knows this already. And then, having learned my lesson, when Duncan came and said, let's make a film, I said, yeah, listen. Listen. That's exactly.
I think those were the words.
Exactly.
Those are the words.
It's amazing
Wow.
that I can retain that after.
That's inspiring. You must have been.
And then when I heard that, I thought, now I've definitely got to make
There's
it.
only one way, isn't there? Let's make this thing.
No, but seriously, the book, I mean, you've read the book. The book's fantastic. It really is. And Graham always says the film's better, but
It is.
I'm not sure I agree with that.
I tell you something, Diego. What helped us be sure about it was that he's very good at visualizing ideas and how to tell a story using images, not words. And he assembled a good team. And what it felt like was an opportunity to tell the same story but better, and also with the participants there for you.
Yeah.
It's like, you know, something from science fiction. If you can bring the pages to life. Now I know that there's been centuries of books and moving pictures, which is why it's called the movies, because originally it was movies and moving pictures. But like, to be presented with that opportunity was one, really inspiring, but two, both of us like a challenge. So if you think about really 4 guys, plus wives or partners and people that we contracted in to help us, saying let's make effectively a cinema project as our first ever effort.
To be honest, it grew into that, didn't it? Because originally it was going to be a kind of hour-long TV documentary. That was our original thought. But quite quickly, once we'd got a few of the names involved, and this was one of the differences with the book, maybe, because with the book there was a lot of interviews that were conducted for the book, but a lot of the stories came from other interviews, whereas we got a lot of the stories firsthand.
Awesome.
Because we did 36 interviews for the documentary. 32 of them made the film. There was 4 that didn't.
There's probably
over 20 hours of interview footage.
And amongst that, there's probably 2 epoch-changing moments. One is Xavi says, yes, come over to Qatar. And we go and we film the shit out of that for 3 days. Utterly magnificent.
It was absolutely brilliant.
He talks brilliantly. He does what you'll see in the film is the crisps and the glasses and the ashtrays and the
him
tactics.
in the football law doing his.
And he does the football robot where. Did you have a little try at that as well?
I wasn't allowed.
If you haven't seen this, it's a great big sort of square structure where lights come. It's in the film. Go see the film.
Go see the film.
Go see the film. But also, the other thing that really changed everything was persuading Thierry Henry to come and speak to us in the Landmark at hotel
Which Xavi helped with, to be
in
honest,
London, and
'cause we sent him that.
Henri saw Xavi's contribution and went, "Yeah, baby, I'm in."
Yeah.
Again, that's exactly what he said. And then we sit down for a brilliantly prepared set. Duncan's brought his tactics board just to show Thierry where he's been going wrong over his career. And we set up and we start talking. We think because Thierry's a superstar and he's on Sky at the time for, I don't know, a 21 million euro contract, and he sits and talks to us with enthusiasm pouring out for the length of an entire match, right? 90 minutes.
Wow.
And as we're about to finish, and we're like, we can't fit all this in unless it's a sort of long-running mini-series. Can I just say one more thing? We're like, yeah, Terry.
The cameras, honestly, the cameras were off, the lights were off, and this never happens, as you know, when you interview footballers, you maybe get 10, 15, 20 minutes if you're lucky.
Maximum.
Yeah.
That's tantric interviewing.
With Thierry, we'd already been an hour and a half. Graham had done an hour's interview, I'd done half an hour on the tactics, and we finished, and we turned everything off. Thank you very much, Thierry. And I promise you, he went, as Graham said, he went, I just remembered one more thing. Can I say one more thing?
My gosh.
We're like, all right then, if you must.
Fine, pull the cameras out. So let me ask you about that, because I was very curious about that. Not only how aware both of you were that you were documenting history and making history for future generations to learn about this incredible football team, but also how aware were you that the players wanted to share this and share their feelings, their experiences?
I think we were very lucky because, we were very lucky because it was such a special time, and these players knew that they were part of a special time, and I think we gauged it well, partly through luck and partly just because the film took so long to make, that enough time had gone by and suddenly it was something new to talk about, because enough time had gone by where PK hadn't been speaking about Pep Guardiola and that period. Puyol hadn't been asked about his injuries during that time. You know,
Xavi comes across as somebody who always feels like talking. I don't know, but he seems like he would be happy.
I think you're probably right in that there's exceptions where Xavi could talk about football. He could probably talk about football in Qatar for 3 hours and not get bored about it because he is a football man through and through. But I think the luck is that
no offense, Qatar.
Yeah, sorry, Qatar. They are going to put on our film, aren't they?
Not anymore.
But yeah, the fact was that these guys, they get asked the same questions all the time, all the time, and they're bored of it. They're bored of talking about Mourinho. They're bored, well, they were. Abidal was bored about being asked about how at the start it was difficult to talk to Pep. But suddenly, 4 or 5 years gone past, and they haven't talked about these things. And Gerard Piqué says to us that his relationship with Pep Guardiola was love and hate. And we're all kind of clinging on to every word he says. Because, these are maybe things that he wouldn't be saying about Ernesto Valverde. No chance, right? But because enough time had passed, because it was such a special era, because Graham and Mark Guillen, who's not here, were doing the interviews and had such good relationships and connections with these guys, I feel like we really got the most out of them. So partly through luck, partly through...
They enjoyed it. I think anybody who watches it will see them sometimes a little bit... The interviews aren't played in full, obviously, they're cut down, but you can begin to see them, they laugh, and they sort of not just laugh at the questions, they find themselves listening to their own reminiscences and smiling or laughing. And there's a process in an interview, you've obviously achieved it here, it's quite G-Spot, not D-Spot, where if it's going well,
name change,
the person who is being interviewed can sometimes lose themselves in their answers and just start to enjoy any time
the conversation.
It's a film, it's just, honestly, Metro Golden Ware. So I think that those who watched it evolve will see the players sort of going, wow, that happened, or we did this, or I couldn't, the video. When you see Valdez talking about the video, its impact, not being allowed into his dressing room before the Rome final, and then being in bits, and then he'd come out. It took me a while to catch them. Estuvimos hecho madres. Like they come out crying from the video that Pep's made them before the Rome final against Manchester United, and then Bocelli starts singing, they all burst into tears again, and he kind of goes, Manchester United must have thought we were like old women, and I was like, I'm on the fucking floor, man, I'm just holding myself.
He was great. Valdés was one of the best as well, and Valdés hadn't given an interview. Hadn't before or since, and that was the one time that we got him in. And he was another one, much like Dani Alves, much like Thierry Henry. He was one of the ones that was very happy talking, and you know, 50 minutes turned into 20, turned into 30, turned into 40. And, you know.
So do you think in a way that this was a little bit of perhaps maybe a therapy session for them to kind of the first time they can really sit back, reflect, charge them, that's good. But to, you know, kind of offload all of these emotions and really, as you mentioned before, reminisce about what they achieved. Has that happened maybe in private? No,
I don't think a therapy session, but I do really genuinely think that enough time had gone by that they weren't bored of talking about it, and that it was such a special time that they genuinely enjoyed it. Right?
I think that everybody reaches a stage where they appreciate being appreciated. You know, there's a big market in football nostalgia, and this wasn't it. But like Duncan points out, I'd also say there's a little bit of culpability, and I'm sorry to some of the Spanish media and Catalan media, but at the time, many of the players were simply burned out talking about headlines, being probed about Real Madrid, or being probed about, do you think Pep should stay or go, or sign a new contract, or all that shit. Now, if I were in their boots, you know, if I were an elite footballer, not only wouldn't I put up with that, I'd go after the journalists who were talking shit to me. I'd say, you're out, I'm not talking to you, ask me a good question. Right now, I put out on Twitter the other day, and I meant it.
I saw that.
That I genuinely think that since he arrived in England, England is a country whereby, in some quarters in the football industry, not amongst the punters or the media, there's some idiots who thought Guardiola was going there to teach them the new way, and it was a mistake, and Pep's here to load of shite. But the media has asked him more questions about football per se, player development, positional ideas, strategy, planning.
But this has happened recently, in fairness, not necessarily in this first year, would you say?
No, I think the outside pundits were stupider and slower to realise, but I think that there's been a core of media who've gone up to Manchester City in the belief that they'll be allowed to ask about football. I think local correspondents, and this all cycles around, Diego, to saying that, you said, was it therapeutic for the players? There was a time during this reign that we document in the film that Duncan directed, whereby they were doing, it was just pure fucking sex on the pitch, and everything else was doing the dishes. Having to talk to us was like, look, now here we go again, right? And once that goes away,
well, there's a good line, isn't there, from Xavi that says that because we talk in the film about how Pep's very intense. And Thierry Henry says how, you know, we weren't allowed to go and watch the tennis, we weren't allowed to go and watch the Formula 1 because we'd be in the sun all day. Xavi says how, you know, our diets were controlled. Gerard Piqué says how it was a love-hate relationship because he was so intense.
Quiere meterse en todo.
And Navidal says how he's changed absolutely everything. But then also, Xavi says, but when it came to the football, he knew how to treat us. He knew how to treat us, and we would go to training sessions happy because we were being treated properly as professional footballers. Because here's a guy who's only retired a couple of seasons previously.
Exactly.
So you know, there was
and
a lot of
Henry saying, like, the whistle would go at the end of a match, and he actually does. Ready? What? But I was enjoying myself. Now,
loved it.
That's what we tapped into. That's what by fluke or good management or good timing or the right questions or the right atmosphere, because we worked as a team. You know, Victor and Mark, Duncan and I, all of us were part of every shoot in one way or another. All of that group, not each of us at every shoot. And you create an atmosphere sometimes.
And the subject, we were very clearly going for a football line. It wasn't polemic, it wasn't anything, you know, okay, Mourinho, we tell the story about Mourinho, of course, but there's a lot about pure football, about the Barca DNA, about the tactics.
Right, the tactics behind it, the battle.
It was all about that.
Yeah, I agree. And that's why people can go and see it in the cinema this weekend.
Well,
that's right.
They have to.
They must.
They have to. Absolutely. And I'm gonna let you guys talk about the days, the estrenos and everything after my final question.
It's quite cold, isn't it?
It is a little bit cold.
No, this is him just being involved. It's not a coldness. It's clinical. I like to call it. Yeah, well, he probes. It's like a football dentist.
Is there anybody that, I mean, you guys obviously interviewed many players, had privileged access. You don't need to give away who you spoke to. I was just wondering, is there anybody that you didn't speak to, that you would have said, I would have loved to have?
Not necessarily that we'd have loved to have.
I've got the obvious one.
But we've been asked a lot about whether we spoke to,
and
or tried to speak to the man, you know who I'm
yes,
say,
yes.
Jose Mourinho. And here's the answer.
There's two things. There's something more important than that, and it's crucial. We began making this when Johan Cruyff was alive, and it was through great good fortune that I was contracted to go over to Berlin to do the last ever interview he did publicly. I didn't know it at the time, but about 8 days following that interview in Berlin, it was announced that he had his cancer, and it seemed that he was healing. And at the point that it seemed that he was healing, because we had friendly relationships with the Cruyff Foundation, Jordi had really been a fundamental part of the film, and a really, really in-depth and revealing interview, just showing his intelligence and
excellent.
And how he tells stories. Like he's up there with Xavi.
But that was a good example as well of you two. Just there was an absolute click. You could really feel it.
We clicked, and that was fun. But he's the guy. Before we talk about anybody else, we genuinely thought that Johan was going to recover, and that once he was well enough, we might be in a position to get him to come on the film.
Yeah.
And no matter what the film does or what anybody says about it, that will be just about the only regret I have about the whole process. And so moving on from that, but that's the most sincere thing I've said this evening. Yeah, with Mourinho, it wasn't ever. Maybe it wasn't Jose Mourinho's story. In Jose Mourinho, we had a participant who was a combatant. And I didn't think it was relevant to have him talking about it, because he was a guy, he was, Lucifer the angel who fell from heaven and wanted to bring this era down for understandable ends, but did it in a way that helped propel the story in the film, but it didn't need revisiting, because in the film we make it clear that some of the board actively wanted to appoint Mourinho instead of Guardiola.
No.
We make it clear that there were very clear ways to construct an argument for that. That he was certainly meritorious of consideration, and we portray the classical wars of 2011, and then we move on. His role in the film, his role in that era, didn't need an interview any more than, say, Zlatan Ibrahimovic did. It wasn't relevant. And one of the things that we deeply regret, and this is important, is that of those 30-something interviews, 85% of them, if they're not on the cutting room floor, we couldn't use them. There are people who were essential to the story, as we saw it, who haven't made it into the final film.
Well, I was very happy to hear Johan Cruyff's name there, and thank you, Graham, for sharing that. That was very moving.
Yeah, it just overtook me a little bit.
Yeah, I can understand completely. I guess after 33 minutes,
Steve's gonna be.
There's a lot of people that have been writing me saying, when I mentioned that I was going to do this interview, ask them where we can see it, not only in the UK but US, guys from India, all over the world really, and of course here in Catalonia. So where can they see it? I don't. Okay. I'll put up all of the information as well, obviously.
No, thanks for asking. At the moment, it's about to go out this Friday, the 9th of November. On Friday, it'll be going out in 22 different cinemas around Catalonia. Well, 21 in Catalonia, 1 in Zaragoza.
Yeah.
That's 17 different cities, 22 different screens, and it's a unique opportunity because it's the only time it's going to go out in Catalonia. So Friday night, the 9th of November, is the night to go and watch it here. In the UK, it starts on the 10th, and it will be shown on various different nights. I think the 10th, the 14th, and the 21st in London, Manchester, Glasgow, Aberdeen, Edinburgh, and potentially some other venues as well. And in terms of around the world, follow at Take the Ball Film for the latest release.
For the releases.
Coming out soon.
That's it. That's
Everywhere.
it.
No lo perdáis. Viernes.
Absolutely not.
Noviembre 9. A las 8.
Eso es. Voy a poner toda la información, sí, en la descripción aquí abajo. Duncan, Graham, ha sido un placer. It's an absolute pleasure. Thank you guys so much for sharing these details with all the lovely followers of DSpot and Barça Blaugranes, SB Nation's award-winning platform. Thank you, boys.
Thank you.
And congratulations.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, baby.
Bye. Cool, man.